So if I want to run a report for what came in, I can go up here and run a report. It will show me the warnings and errors, and it will also give me totals so that I can compare them perhaps to an invoice that I got from the Cardlock vendor, right? So here's all this CS 2007 fuel quantities greater than vehicle capacity. Here's a warning for a blank odometer read. That's the one that we just blanked out. Here's a warning for posting too many miles, right? And if there were any truly invalid records, such as a sold vehicle or a vehicle that we can't find at all, it would be right at the top in a section called invalid records. Okay, so they will show up before the valid records. Okay, and so I can go down to the bottom of the report, and I can see that there were 2,194 gallons for $6,255. And we remember I translated to the $2.85. So this number is not going to match any report I got from the Cardlock, but this number should. The 2,194 gallons should. Okay. Another thing that happens quite often is that you fuel an auxiliary tank. Okay. So people have to understand that when you fuel an auxiliary tank, it may even come in under the card of the truck that carries the auxiliary tank or tows the auxiliary tank, but you don't want it to be charged to that truck because the truck is not using that fuel. And in fact, you don't want it to come in through fuel usage at all because the fuel is not being used whatsoever. Fuel going into an auxiliary slip tank or aux tank is not being used at that time. It is intended to be driven around to a job site and then fuel up vehicles at a later time, and then some sort of logbook or something will be brought in for manual fuel entry into CAMs to get the costs to the actual vehicles that use the fuel. Okay, so what you do there, what the solution there is, you definitely do not want to have 150 gallons going into the truck for two reasons. One, because it misrepresents the truck's consumption, and two, because when it gets actually used to fuel equipment later, then it'll be double consumed. So I worked with a county once, and they had huge negative values in their fuel inventory master, and the reason was that they were double consuming all the time. They were every month putting hundreds or even 1,000 gallons in various auxiliary tanks that were coming out of their main fuel inventory master, and then they were fueling from those auxiliary tanks and putting those in also as consumption from the inventory master. So the way you set that up is through the vehicle category. So if I go to vehicle categories, you want to set up a vehicle category for your auxiliary tanks. And it doesn't matter what you call it, but the main thing is that you say fuel transactions are inventory transfers, not vehicle fueling. Okay, so once I have that, then I can go in and I can look for vehicles that are in. I will show you a vehicle that is in that bulk category. Okay, so I believe it is CS 2004. Okay, so when you put a vehicle in the bulk category, then these fields here will pop up, and they will indicate they will say this is a slip tank. I know it's in with the vehicles, and it's not a Ford Explorer. I just picked a random vehicle, but we have to make it a vehicle because that's the way it's going to come in the Cardlock. And so what you're telling us is when fueling comes in for this CS 2004, we're not burning the fuel. We're moving it to location 12, item unleaded. So what you'll see here is that this one for 2004, we know that it's a slip tank. Okay, and you can set and we can set up right here that we check both these boxes, that we are going to receive to the location and item in the vehicle master, and we are going to put a negative receipt to the location item in the import file. So this is saying we're going to take fuel out of O2, location 2 unleaded, and put it into location 12 unleaded, which is what we did, which was what we set up here. Okay. So let's just say I also have some other options. I can set a date for all the fuel records instead of taking the date that they give me. I, of course, can erase all the bad odometer reads that we don't like. And this is actually a very clean file. And then I've got these fuel quantities is greater than fuel capacity, or than vehicle capacity. So that's on CS 2007. Okay, so I maybe go look it up, and maybe I realize that those fuelings are correct, and this fuel capacity is wrong, and we need to change it. Whatever. I could say erase all the invalid records, but be careful because that's really good for erasing invalid records that you actually don't want. But if I just tell it to erase invalid records, then I may erase things that I want and I really needed to fix. Erase potential duplicates. If you re-import a file, then we'll check for the same gallons, same day, same vehicle, same fuel type, same odometer, and we will say it looks like this fueling is already in CAMS, this particular line. And so this button will erase those lines that are already in there in case we have some places that have a hard time getting, like for instance, they will get, in the beginning of the year, they'll get the first month, but then in their second polling of their fuel island, they get the first month and the second month. So then when they've got this whole slew of what we think are duplicates, and so then they just hit this button and it gets rid of all the ones they've already imported. Okay. Save grid and load grid. This is for if you have a very large number of records and you're manipulating them, you're dealing with odometer reads, you're playing with the data or whatever, and you want to, then you've made a bunch of changes, but then you have to go home or you get distracted or whatever. You can save the grid and then work from that grid instead of working from the source file. So you can save your progress if you have, because we have people that have hundreds of odometer errors that need to be corrected each time. And then sort grid can be helpful. It sorts the grid in order by vehicle number. So all the 1431s are together, etc. Okay, so I can also control here with control the columns that are in my report. So I like my report, or I like my import 2194. Looks good. That agrees with what it said. I've got everything lined up here, and then the last step, if you like what you see, is just to accept the data into CAMS. So I say yes. It runs through, and then what I should start to see is both fuel records in here, in my fuel data entry, and also fuel transfers here in my shop inventory, right? Because for those slip tanks, the fuel transfers, all right, we're done. The fuel transfer, so it says transfer complete, 174 records imported. So if I go into my fuel data entry, and this was for March, I believe. So here are all my records, right? And they say they came in from Cardlock, right? And you can see that they were all imported at the same time. So perfectly accurate, and imported all those, and it imported them all as coming out of shop location 2, item number UNL. Okay, so now these are here in the fuel data entry, and these can be modified or added to with credit card usage or logbook usage, whatever. That's all fine. And then they'll need to be posted in order to hit the inventory and draw down the inventory. Okay, in post fuel. And thinking about that slip tank, if we go into our shop inventory, you can see here that the Pasco shop, which was where the big amount was coming from, got a bunch of negative receipts, right? That are saying, because this fuel was not consumed, it was put into an auxiliary tank. So this reduced the Pasco. See, I started it at 1,000 today. It's the beginning inventory, and now we're at 895 because it did come out of the big tank, but it didn't actually get consumed, so it's not in fuel usage. And then if I go look at the shop service trucks unleaded, it started at 100 today, and it received all these same 104, right? So no change in my overall amount of unleaded in my inventory, but the shop service trucks unleaded tank went up by 104, and the main tank at the shop went down by 104. Okay, and then later we'll enter fuel usage for the shop service truck once it brings back its logbook of what it actually did. Okay. And so now my inventory is up to date. My fuel data entry should be accurate. I can run fuel usage audit trails, etc., and then post this. And my operational tab should have these new entries. So here we go. So I've got here's all the new fuel odometers that I received, right? Okay. There's one. So that was a pretty big jump, but it was apparently within the thresholds of being okay. What else? You'll notice that the 2004, which was my slip tank, it did not get a fuel transaction because there was no fuel. It didn't get an odometer because there was no fuel transaction. It was just a tank transfer. So that makes sense. And now I'm done with my fuel card lock and ready to merge in my manual fuel entries and post everything so that my vehicles are up to date and my inventory, if applicable, is up to date as well. I think that's it for fuel card lock. So happy importing.